And how have you tried to prepare the guys for what is in store for them on Sunday?
Yeah, earlier in the week we spent a bit of time talking to our group about what life might be like in the next little while. Didn't want to sugarcoat anything. We think you're better off to look at these issues and deal with them up front. So we spent the early part of the week looking at that. We don't play until Sunday, and last few days we've switched our attention to training and playing the game against Hawthorn on the weekend.
Have you finalised the 22, Fags? Have you cut the bench yet?
We will later in the afternoon. I think that's due in about 4:30 tonight, so we'll have a bit more of a chat about that this afternoon.
How is the health of the squad, Fags? Everyone in good fighting fitness?
Yeah, we've had a really good pre-season. Most of our guys have been able to complete 85% or more of it. They've all got good match time over the last month or so. So we're in a good space in terms of the health of our list.
Fags, just on your team then, it's Michael Whiting here. You obviously left out Callum Archie. How much agonising was there over that backline position and what sort of tipped him out eventually?
To be honest, not very much, Michael. He's got a head cold and he hasn't been able to train the last couple of days, so he's not well enough to play.
Would he have been chosen otherwise, or you hadn't got to that? You just were waiting till a bit later in the week?
Oh, it's sort of irrelevant to answer that question. We didn't have to have the debate, so I can't tell you what the outcome would have been.
Yeah.
And Cam Ellis-Yeoman, Fags, like he didn't do enough in that reserves game to force his way. Obviously he hasn't, but what else would you like to see from him? It's going to be hard for him now with no reserves footy, isn't it?
Well, no, because we'll get injuries and all sorts of things, so opportunities will come. He actually played well in the reserves game against Carlton, but our AFL team played particularly well on that night as well. So, the plan is this week that we're not going to make too many changes.
Fags, have you, just another selection issue, with the game being reduced by 20% now, does that affect your ruck combination at all, do you think, or is that something you just have to monitor after you've seen a little bit of evidence?
We'll look at the evidence, but we see our ruck combination as one of our strengths, so we'll play to our strengths.
Since you've come to the club, you've got a great record against Hawthorn, and you've won your last 4 against them. Have you put your finger on why that might be?
No, it was just the performance of the players on the day. They went out and executed our plan. All those games, I think, have been pretty tight sort of games that could have gone either way. Unfortunately, they went our way. But it was really the great work by our players and executing the plan is the reason why we were able to win those games.
Fags, Greg Davis here, mate. What's Birchall? Can you give us an indication of what Grant Birchall's brought to the group? I mean, he's playing his 249th senior game against the club he played 248 for. What's been the most pleasing thing that he's brought to the group?
Birch is a really steady sort of a character. He brings a calmness to our defensive unit. He obviously brings a lot of experience, which he's been able to pass on throughout the pre-season. He's a very, very good person, and on top of that, he's a great footballer when he's fit. He's one of the best rebounding defenders going around, so we're looking forward to his contribution as the season goes forward.
Fags, did you
game last night?
Yeah, I was going to ask the
same question.
Did you watch the game?
Yeah, I did watch the game last night. It was interesting to watch a game without crowd, and to watch how the players coped with that. No doubt they all found it very, very different. We're a little bit fortunate up here. At the Gabba, we get to train on the Gabba, and so we train on a big empty stadium on a regular basis. So that eeriness is not something unfamiliar to us.
Did you get any tips on how you might change your coaching style in an empty MCG, like just from watching how they went about things last night? Was there any insights you could gain from that?
Well, probably fair to say you probably can't yell out as much because the opposition coach's box will be able to hear what you're saying, so because everything echoes, so we'll just be a little quieter, I guess, but I don't think too much else will change. And it was obviously interesting last night to hear the amount of voice and talk that goes on the field. It was excellent for our fans to be able to see that.
So what is the protocol that you're going through to protect players from getting it, Dave?
Probably don't have time to go through the real rigours of detail, but suffice to say, both internal and external protocols we've activated in line with the government and the AFL. So we're seeking all our advice from our medical guys that are hooked up with the AFL through Peter Harcourt, and certainly as advice from the government. I think what we're trying to do, mate, is to put another layer in place in regards to things like what their external activities. We need to help the AFL complete 153 games for the season, and the tricky bit is trying to get our families and partners, and friends, I guess, of our players, an understanding of what that potentially change in behaviours looks like.
As a precaution, has anyone been tested as yet?
No, that would be medically irresponsible. Unless you fit the criteria of being overseas or being in direct contact with someone that has coronavirus, that the protocols around that are really clear, and the irresponsibility would be that if there's someone in the community that needs that test, we shouldn't be going down that path.
Okay.
So Dave, do you have concern that it might be spreading and you guys don't know about it, or is that just something you can't worry about?
Oh, look, I think from a community sense, Fish, I think, that's probably something that we're all consciously aware of. We don't know how that escalation or that scaling is going to look in 2 days' time, let alone, from this morning to lunchtime. Some things have already shifted in regards to where I landed this morning to just hooking up with a GM's meeting. So it's really hard to say. I'm certainly no medical expert in regards to how this, virus travels, and I'm probably across the medical information, as well as you guys are.
So Dave, does that mean you basically have to plan for the worst case scenario if you are shut down for 30 days or more? I guess you've already started thinking about what you guys do with the players then?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, what that isolation looks like from a club perspective, player perspective. If our whole club shut down, what do we do with the guys that necessarily, aren't necessarily in that contamination, field? Are we allowed to keep training those guys? Not only the people at the AFL, but internally our guys are working, really hard to try to understand what those levels of planning might look like and what the protocols are around it. Suffice to say is that with all of this going on, we've still got a game to play on Sunday.
And as the travel is all the travel and whatnot, and the buses and everything, the hotels, is that any further information from what Swanee told us the other day?
Well, look, all I can say is what we'll be doing. I mean, it's no secret. We'll follow as close as we can to sort of normality, I reckon, in regards to that. So travel at the same time. There'll be, more dynamic look around in the Virgin Lounge, how we get to the gate. There'll be no other people on the plane apart from us and the girls. What that looks like with getting to the bus. The protocols around hand washing as we get on and off the plane, getting to the hotel. We'll probably brief the players when we get to hotel in regards to the hotel protocols. Probably tighter restrictions on contact points there as well. So families, friends, players probably not being really, allowed out of the hotel range. There's all those levels that, every day we come in, guys, to be honest, we're probably scratching a different surface and then finding new areas where we can just slightly tighten things to protect not only ourselves but the community. If we can help, if part of our job is to help stop this spread, and if we can do that from a community perspective, then that's certainly one of the points that we've expressed strongly to our players and staff.
Charter flights and buses and everything with regard to that, how long is that sustainable, David?
Not sure. I don't have an answer because it's, if you talk to someone yesterday around the scaling of what the viral contamination looks like, and then you talk, you know, you wake up this morning and you see what levels that looks like. It's really hard to quantify. What we've done with our players is we've been really honest and open with them and told them everything that we know and that, you know, the updated information, and asked our players to sort of follow those protocols and be really flexible with what we have to do. You know, so we could wake up Sunday morning and our protocols around how we get to the ground might have changed. You know, we might have to get 3 small minibuses to go to the ground instead of just jumping on one bus. So all those things that we just have to be flexible and, you know, I guess adapt as we go.
So just one slightly less important question though, or not less important, just different tact. I understand you guys are going to try and play the Suns in some NEFL matches just to keep those non-best 22 players conditioned. Like, when would you be able to expect to start those matches, or are you just not sure at the moment?
No, so we won't be able to do that on medical advice at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see how things sort of settle. I reckon fish in the next, you know, it's probably month now. Like, if we can't get one away now, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to sort of do that in the coming weeks. So we'll have to just work around, you know, our guys training 10 on 10, 11 on 11, 12v12. I mean, we've got a healthy list, which is great. And I think, you know, in essence, we've got to try to just mitigate all those risk elements. So, you know, further contact with other clubs just brings another one of those layers and levels of, you know, of contamination, if you like.